Healthcare. We begin this program with some advice and important information that we think all parents will want to know about vaping, drugs, and alcohol in the digital age. It is the focus of a new documentary that we first showed on Inside Healthcare last month. It's called not teenagers, but screenagers under the influence, and it reveals the health risks that vaping, drugs, and alcohol in the digital age poses to kids and young adults. To talk about these risks and the myths and about them, we are very pleased to have with us Merri Guggisberg, a parent coach, first time on the set, so glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
So such an important topic, so we really appreciate you taking time to be with us.
Thank you. Yeah, so also thank you to you, because we've only seen each other through a window, so this is great to be in person. The film, where to begin in telling you about the film? The whole title is Screenagers Under the Influence of Drugs, Vaping, addressing vaping, alcohol, drugs in the digital age.
And the digital age is the key thing in all of these components, isn't it?
Exactly, and how are kids accessing this? How are kids getting access? And those devices, and how we can come alongside with that.
And I think the documentary highlights 8 different myths and things like that. We can't get into all of them in this program, but maybe we can touch on a couple of them. Like one of them, about vaping.
Yeah.
What is one of the biggest myths about vaping?
Thave
a graphic, I think, that can kind of talk about too.
Exactly. Yeah, and the graphic will show too that the myth is that vaping is safer than using traditional leaf cigarettes. And it actually isn't. One pod that they would put in their electronic cigarette or vaping device has as much nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes.
Who would think that?
Yeah, and we know that how addictive nicotine is, and you think if someone's taking that many puffs on a Juul or a different brand, how addictive that is. And then we think of our young people's brains aren't developed till they're 25, so we have to just slow down and give them tools to have those protective factors, have those ways of addressing so that they can say no.
And talking about smoking and smokers, there's also a myth about the smokers too, and people have some misconceptions about smokers.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is when we go back to chatting about vaping, I would say a great tip for parents and caregivers, and when I talk about caregivers, I want to expand that.
Could be grandparents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have parents and grandparents and school staff that come to my workshops, and it's a beautiful way because, like yourself, a grandparent, we're learning all of this and how do I support my child and my grandchild. So when I invite you to come to a workshop, it's not just the person in that home raising that child, it's the whole family unit. But where I was going to say with vaping and any of the substances we're going to talk about is how are our youth being targeted? And have that conversation. How is media coming at you to make this normal so that everyone's doing it? Where actually, if we unpack that, we have also talked about the Minnesota Student Survey, most kids aren't, and it's that perception. So having that conversation with parents, caregivers to say, how do you feel targeted? What are you seeing in your social that is really calling you to be like, wait a second, that's not my friend circle, that's not what we're doing. So having those critical thinking skills.
And it's challenging with everything else that they're dealing with as well. So,
exactly.
And I think the best thing is to get information out and dispelling some of those myths and stuff like that. What would be some of the other myths that people should be aware of, and parents?
So again, you said there's 8 myths that the film unpacks, and you're right, 8 myths, but we're only going to touch on 3. And the next one we want to talk about is around alcohol. And the myth that's called out is that I can keep my kids safe if I let them start drinking at a younger age, or if I let them drink in my own home. And so first I'd invite families to just take a look. Go to your computer, Google what is a social host law. And I'll help you because it's unlawful for people in Minnesota to knowingly serve alcohol to a minor. So that's just
Good
FYI,
information
just so you
during
know.
graduation time right now.
Exactly.
Parties,
And family reunions, and we're going to be getting together for the celebration of the 4th of July. And the other thing I would call out is that studies show that kiddos, youth who drink socially at home, they're more likely to have increased drinking after they leave the home, whether they're in college or they are young adults on their own.
Interesting.
Yeah, evidence-based. So the film really walks deep into this. It even has called out a community in the film that has gone completely alcohol-free. And all their kid events, they call it No Red Cup. And so you think of the solo cup that you would walk around and have cocktails in, and that it just talks about the families coming together and celebrating their children's growth and life in sports, alcohol-free.
And you have another graphic too about binge drinking. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that too.
And what constitutes a drink. I think so when you see that visual, it will help you know, oh, for young men and for women, it's this many drinks that is considered binge drinking. Yeah.
It's important to know that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, we've been hearing a lot too with marijuana here in Minnesota and cannabis. What do we know about cannabis?
Yeah, well, the myth that's unpacked in the film is that that cannabis is not addictive, where really if you go to the CDC, the risk of developing marijuana use disorder is greater if people start young. So again, I invite people to come see the screening, learn more about vaping, learn more about how our kids are accessing alcohol and substances in this digital age. And then really when you come and see the film, we have a panel of experts. So we take this national message and we bring it home. It's that opportunity to say, in my community, how do I support this? What's happening? Is this really what the national news is showing? The film showed this, but what's really happening in my community?
We're about out of time for our conversation, but how can people see the screen? How can they see the film? How can organization, can they host a screening and things like that? Just very briefly.
Yeah, so reach out to me. We do have October 5th. We have one scheduled at Altman Middle School for South Washington County Schools. It's open to anyone, and there'll be a registration link. Reach out to me at Merri at MKG Parent Coach, or go to my website, because what I'd love is to invite sponsors. If this is something that you're passionate about, come and help us sponsor this and get this information to your business, to your community, to your faith community. It's just a great way to, one, build a parent's toolkit and grandparents' toolkit, because there's so many unknowns. How do we have these conversations? And come and learn, and then share it with others.
Well, Merri, a pleasure to have you on the program with great information. I hope everyone will go out and go see that film then too.
Yes, thank you. Honored to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Still ahead, we talk with a local doctor about helping keep our kids safe this spring and in the coming months and summer, so stay with us.
Vision loss is not something that you feel until it happens.
Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration and glaucoma, not at birth.
3 million Americans have glaucoma, and half don't even know it.
11 million people in the United States have macular degeneration.
So many eye disorders can be treated if caught early.
Make a plan today to get your eyes checked.
Visit brightfocus.org to learn more.
According to the CDC, spring is the time that thousands of kids end up in the ER due to playground injuries. We talked with Dr. Kristi Trussell with the Urgency Room about the most common playground and trampoline-related injuries and what are the type of injuries that she is most concerned about.
As the weather warms up and kids are out playing on the playground, we do tend to see a lot more injuries from falls from the playground. One of the most common things that we see is if a child is on the monkey bars and falls down and lands with their hands stretched out and lands on that arm. That's a common way to break the forearm or the wrist.
As I said, that kind of happened to my daughter too when she was young, yeah.
So we see and take care of a lot of arm fractures for kids. Sometimes even the elbow gets broken, which is a little bit more serious. The other common injury that we see is if a child goes down the slide on the lap of a parent, sometimes the foot or leg can get caught and twisted, and that can fracture the lower leg. So that's also a common and pretty easily avoidable playground injury.
And I know that all the parks and recs have really stepped up the safety on the playground equipment, but yeah, it's always to keep that in mind. So if a child has an injury, you can bring them to the urgency room. What kind of treatment do you offer them?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to evaluate any child with an injury. Common things that we see and take care of are those broken bones. We're actually able to do reductions where if the bones need to be manipulated or put back in a better alignment for healing, we're able to do that at the urgency room. Our clinical staff are well trained to take care of kids. We're able to do sedation or pain medication depending on the extent of the injury. We also take care of all of the more minor things too, like cuts and scrapes, sprained ankles, head injuries, head bumps from either falling and hitting the head or running into another child while racing around the playground. We take care of all those things.
Well, a lot of good advice there. And I know another thing parents may not be aware of about trampoline related type injuries. Those, I think, reportedly 90,000 emergency room visits every year as a result of those. What kinds of injuries do you see as a result of trampolines? Similar?
Yeah, trampolines can also send us some children with injuries. The things that we see are a lot of things that are similar to the playground injuries. So arm fractures where a child falls off and lands on that arm. Other things that we see are kids jumping together and then plunking heads and running into each other. So kids come in to be evaluated for their head injuries. We also see the lower extremity injuries like knees, ankles, and legs from trampolines.
You mentioned the head injuries. What are the types of injuries that you worry the most about when you see these injuries with children in particular?
So, one of the more dangerous injuries that can happen on a trampoline is a neck injury, particularly if you're attempting flips and landing, coming down on the head. So that's something that, that it would be taken very seriously if a child or an adult did a flip, landed, and injured their neck. That's something that we need to look closely at.
And how do you know when to bring your child if they've been in an accident or injury, playground, trampoline, whatever, bikes? When should you bring them in, and when do they need medical attention?
Yeah, so a lot of this kind of depends on what exactly happened and how they're feeling. A lot of parents treat lots of bumps, bruises, strains at home, but we would certainly recommend bringing your child to be evaluated if they have severe pain or swelling, can't use the arm, can't walk on the leg or foot. Those are some pretty hard indications for a medical evaluation.
At mHealth Fairview, they are helping to prevent injuries for kids, including offering a free bike helmet giveaway. In a moment, we'll tell you all about where your kids can receive free bike helmets. But first, joining us, we're very pleased to have Emily Fofana, trauma manager with Fairview, and also a registered nurse. So glad to have you with us.
Yes, hi, thanks for having me.
So I understand that there's thousands of kids that also have unintentional injuries. Some may be preventable injuries. What are some of those most common ones that you see in trauma and stuff, and who's most at risk for them?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So injury is the #1 cause of death for children. So that's a big number to hear.
Is.
About 7,000 kids die each year from trauma. And the thing is, most of those injuries are preventable. They say up to 90% is both predictable and preventable. Most of the injuries that we see, it can be dependent on age and also their development level. So you're going to see different causes of death for different age groups. So kids under the age of 1 year are most likely to die by suffocation, as opposed to kids age 1 through 4, which the most common cause of death is drowning, and then ages 5 to 19 is injury from motor vehicle collisions. So it kind of depends on that age group there.
Very interesting. Even rural versus urban kind of type of who's at more risk and things like that. So
yes, correct. Usually you expect that people would be more vulnerable the older that they are or the younger they are. But again, one of the things that we teach or try to teach in our injury prevention outreach is that there are most common causes of death per age group. And so we really try to get that information out to parents so that they can be more vigilant to monitor and prevent any injury specifically around that area.
Tell us a little bit about your injury prevention programs and outreach and things. What do you do?
Yeah, right now we're doing a really great one. We, Health Fairview with Masonic Children's Hospital, we've really worked hard to build a bike helmet distribution program, which is actually really fun. I love participating out in the community. But we get donated bike helmets that are new, and we distribute them for free to different areas in the Twin Cities and the suburbs. And to date, since it started in 2016, we've actually given away almost 4,000 helmets.
Wow, that's
free of charge. And we also do bike helmet fittings. So if they have their own helmet, they don't want a new one, but they want to come and see how to put it on to make sure that we have it on correctly, they can bring that too, and we can do those fittings for
Why
them
is
as
this
well.
important to Fairview to offer these free bike helmets?
Well, because kids like to fall a lot. And so actually, head injury is the most common cause of death for kids who sustain an injury. We see a lot of traumatic brain injuries, and most of the injuries that we see at Masonic Children's Hospital are related to falls. And so here we have the opportunity to pair together protecting their heads with the helmets and also preventing severe injury from falls as well.
So as I mentioned, you have a free bike helmet giveaway coming up here.
We do.
In this month. Tell us a little bit about it.
There is an event called the Woodbury Thrives event. It's coming up on June 12th. It's going to be a Monday evening, 5 to 6:30. It's free. You just come by, bring the kids, and we'll have a station there. They can get a free helmet, or we can fit them for their helmet, and we'll give you some information on fall prevention as well for kids.
What would be some of the fall prevention information that you give them as well?
Well, a lot of it is just making sure that kids, depending on the age, they're vigilant of their surroundings, making sure that if they're on bikes or scooters, the biggest one is really wear that helmet, because that's really going to prevent a lot of injury.
Yes.
Or if they have the injury, it's actually going to prevent the severe injuries. As much as we like to see kids in the ER, we don't want to see kids in the ER.
Now you have that one coming up in
June 12th.
In June 12th. Do you have others planned for the summer as well?
We do. We have 11. We've already completed 3, and if I'm going to look at my notes, we have them pretty much all around the metro areas. We've partnered with a couple of faith-based institutions, so we have one in Forest Lake. We have the Woodbury Thrives. We just did one at the Potter's House of Jesus Christ Church in Minneapolis, so kind of all around.
Well, it must make you feel good to be able to help these kids and prevent these injuries and things like that.
Yes, definitely.
And looking forward to if someone wants to host one of these, how do they go about doing that?
Oh yeah, we were always looking to expand, so they could reach out to myself. The best way to get a hold of me is through email, so it's emily.fofana@fairview.org, or my partner who works for community advancement at Health Fairview, which is Francisco Ramirez at fairview.org.
Final comments for our viewers on how to keep our kids safe this summer?
Yeah, stay alert, protect those brains, make sure you wear your helmets.
Well, Emily, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, still ahead, one local expert shares her top tips on how you can reduce stress with spring cleaning and downsizing. So stay with us.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. High blood pressure silently affects millions of Americans. Staying on top of your blood pressure is as simple as these 4 easy steps. Self-monitoring is power. Visit manageyourbp.org to learn more.
While many of us dread spring cleaning, experts say that spring cleaning or decluttering is just maybe what the doctor ordered and can help you reduce your stress and improve your mood. Well, we have the right person to help you get started if that is a project that you're working on, or spring cleaning or decluttering or downsizing. Kimberly Alwin is a local downsize expert. Her company is called A Smooth Move, and she specializes in helping seniors downsize. And I think it's interesting too, your master's degree is in counseling. So glad to have you with us, Kimberly.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks for inviting me today.
So first of all, how did you get started in this?
Oh, yeah, it can be a very long story, and I know we have short time, but one of our very first moves was my husband's grandmother. And sadly, the day that we arrived, she had passed away. Oh. And so we just really felt strongly what our clients are dealing with, how difficult it is to deal with a move. It's a difficult move. And we really learned, you see so many parts of a person's life through that downsize and treasures that I would love to have talked over with her during the downsize while she was here to tell us about them.
Wow. And then with being a master's in counseling, how does that help you deal with seniors and families and others that are downsizing or struggling with
moving's very stressful, for sure, and downsizing. And very often you have husbands and wives that aren't agreeing on where things should go or whether they need to go, and you have families. Families are complicated, and maybe there's a daughter who doesn't think that what mom's saving is important to be saved, or a son that says, get rid of it, it's all junk, and things like that. It can be really difficult for the family. And so when we step in, we're able to soften that and work on positive things about the move and try to find the good in, the gems in the move.
What would be some of those, like overwhelming? Where do I start? Yeah. What can I do? I mean, should I downsize? I mean, what are some of those answers that you have for them?
Well, I do get people that will tell me quite often, I'm just going to let my family deal with it. When I'm not here anymore, they're going to have to deal with it. Well, I think that they're missing the gem in this, because when you have the time to take the time to work through your memories, you get to relive those memories, which is wonderful. You also get to share those memories. Maybe your family wasn't aware about a little gem you have, something that they would have thought maybe was just trash. Instead, when they hear the story behind it, all of a sudden it becomes treasured and a precious possession that the family is going to want to keep and share with the story with others. So.
And it's important to make that decision, and maybe I just think, well, I just need to clean that room or something like that. Advice for someone just at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. No one loves to sort through and get rid of things. And I think that it makes it easier if you have a goal. Maybe the goal is that you are going to move to a place where you're in a place where there's other people around and you're not alone in your neighborhood all day long. Or if your spouse has passed, maybe it's working through those items and clearing out a space so that now you can use that space to take up a hobby. So you'll have more room to do that. I have 6 great tips I can share with you. I would love to hear those, yeah. Okay. The first thing, as I started to mention, I think if you start to look at where you may not be moving, you just want to downsize, but it's helpful to know what your options are. You may be leaving a home of 5 bedrooms, 2 stories, stairs, and going into something that is a 1-2 bedroom apartment. So it's good to start looking at what that looks like, start to think about what your layout might be. Then I would say pick one space to work in. A lot of people will think they're downsizing when they're working a little in this room and a little in that room, but you never see any progress. It could be a cupboard in your kitchen. It could be that small. But once you've done it, you feel so good you want to do more of it. It might be your linen closet or a spare bedroom. Then I would say gather supplies. Trash bags are a super helpful supply. You're going to use a lot of them when you're sorting. Have them there so you're not going to look for them. Labels and cartons or a marker to write on your cartons. Because once you fill a box for donation, I want you to close it up and label it. And we don't need to go back in it then.
Good advice, yeah.
Also, I think that you need to find your support. So your support person that might come and help you is not the one that says, don't get rid of that, that's so helpful, or get rid of everything. Neither of those are the right friend for this. For a downsize, have that friend who's a cheerleader for you and encourages your decision making. I love to set a timer, and the timer could be for 30 minutes, or it could, if you know that you only have 30 minutes to get going on this, but it's going to get you started, do it. And after that 30 minutes, walk away and do something fun, reward yourself. And I have one more tip, that's get rid of the unwanted stuff right away. Don't let it sit there, for somehow it starts to creep back out of the box and get back into our space. So deal with it, take it away.
And if someone needs more professional help, you're available?
Well, we would love to help, for sure. People think it's going to take a very long time and you're on a long waiting list. We can usually, a move is about a day-and-a-half process from pack to unpack, and that move in between. Right. And the downsize, that's another day to 2 days. It doesn't take very long. And a lot of our people call us miracle workers. So you come in, it's like the magical elves have come, and they're making it happen very quickly, and listening to what you want, what you want to keep, taking care of you and your belongings.
I love that, miracle workers. You are a miracle worker for many people.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Yeah, thank you.
Really great information. Well, that is our program for you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time on Inside Healthcare. See you then, everyone.